Got a 2012 Honda Pilot rear brake pads. First you want to do is jack it up. Now, the first thing you want to do is get your wheel lock key. Get the wheel lock key out of the glove box or out of the trunk. And then you want to break your lug nuts loose. And then you want to jack it up and support it. And then remove your tire. Okay, you get the tire off. What you want to remove is the caliper bolts. There's two of them. One here and one here. And they are 12 millimeter. You take them out and then you can remove your caliper with a small, medium-sized screwdriver. Get inside underneath here and pry it out. Got your two caliper bolts out. Get yourself a screwdriver. Go underneath the little clip there. Pry it out, just like that. Okay. Look at your caliper, make sure the boot's not torn. If the boot's torn, you need to replace it. Next, you're gonna remove the caliper bracket. That looks like a 17, but I'll verify it. It's a 17 millimeter, the back brackets. What you wanna do is put a wrench on the bottom one and hit it with a hammer. Like that. And I had to break the bolt loose, and then you can use the ratchet to wrench it out. The upper one you can get a ratchet and socket on a little bit, but I just still use the wrench. And if you got a ratchet wrench, after you break it loose, that's even better. You know, you don't have to come off of it and just keep on going. Okay? Got the two caliper bolts out. Got the caliper bracket in my hand. And what we need to do is remove the pads out of it. Take the pads out of it. Okay. And then you remove the hardware clips. Sign them off. Okay. Fill your caliper slide pins. They're not frozen. If they're frozen, you might be able to get them loose by heating them up right here. And then put this part in the vise and move them back and forth. If they're frozen, then they need to be replaced. If you heat them up too much, you'll melt the boot. And if you do heat them up too much, this thing might shoot out like a rocket. So be careful. Also, you need to clean that surface up inside there where the abundant clips hardware go. And I'll use a die grinder with an angle on it. And I'll get right in there and clean them up. And then also, you need to push your piston back in on your caliper. You can use a big pair of channel locks, or you can use a C-clamp and a brake pad. Put the brake pad here, and put your C-clamp on here, and then squeeze it together and push the piston in, okay? Now, if you're gonna replace the rotors, you need to remove the retaining screws. There's two of them. With the Phillips heads, you need to get an impact driver. You know, the type to hit with a hammer. You can break them loose and you can unthread them. And then you can get the rotor off. If the rotor just doesn't come right off right away, then you have to hit it with a hammer. 3-pound sledge is what I use. Hit them around. The vibration knocks it loose. And then when you get the rotor off, you want to look at your parking brake shoes that are inside there. Make sure they're okay. And make sure they didn't get misaligned when you pulled the rotor off. But then on the hub, if it's got a lot of rust on, you need to clean that up. I usually use a die grinder with the disc on it. And a sharp new screwdriver, I clean up inside there. And then a wire brush. And after I get it all clean, I put a thin layer of anti-seize on it. And then I put my new rotor on. Put my screws back on. Clean my rotor off with soap and water. Windex or degreaser. Do not use brake clean, because brake clean will deteriorate the new brake shoes. The new style brake shoes have the flower on the box, the three leaves, so they're really hypersensitive to brake clean. So now we're going to go and push our piston back in and clean up our caliper bracket. They didn't want new rotors. So I got my piston pushed back in. I used the big pair of channel locks. If you don't have the channel locks, I have a C clamp. Use the C clamp and put the brake pad up against the piston and push it in. Now I cleaned up my bracket. I'm not removing any metal, I'm just scratching them. Okay, and I used my die grinder for that. And I got in here on an angle and cleaned it up on an angle. I'm just lightly touching it, just enough to scratch it. And I took out my bracket slide pins, put some new Seal Glide on them. So now I'm going to paint my surface, and then I'll put my new hardware abundant clips on there, and then I'll mount my caliper bracket. There she is, ready to go. I noticed a little tab sticking out, that went on the bottom. Okay. Alright, now I'm put my bolts and mount this back up. Okay, I got my caliper bracket snugged up. The torque arm's like 60 foot-pounds. I'll just give you an idea. You might want to look up the factory specs. So what I'll do is I get the nice wrench, hit it with a hammer pretty good, a couple good bounces on it with the hammer, or you can double it with another wrench for leverage and pull down on it and get some tightness that way. But me, I like this method. I hit it a couple times while I'm holding the wrench on, okay? I can't do it, I don't have 3 hands. But you get the idea. If you can get a small torque wrench in there with a small socket, 17, you should be able to torque it that way. Like I said, I use a wrench. I put my hand on it and hold it up against it, and I hit the head of the other end of the wrench with the hammer until I'm satisfied with the torque of it. Because you can tighten it up pretty darn tight with the hammer on this method. Next you want to do is put your pads on. These don't have the anti-squeaker clips on them. I don't usually put them on them because most of the time people get their brakes inspected all the time anyway, so I don't like them. So put the bottom in first, move towards the top, get it in there, take the pad and push it against the other piece of metal. See how I'm pushing up against it? Push up against it and push it in. That's being a booger. Get it in there, push it in, just like that. And do the same thing in back. I'll do the same thing. I'll push the bottom in first, and I'll wiggle the front end. Use the feeling of it, and I'll get it in there. Usually I'm looking without the phone, but okay. I gotta put the phone down and get a light. I can't see it properly with my feel. Got the inner pad in, I put the bottom in first, and then I pushed it up there against that side of the clip, push that clip in, and then push the pad in. You just look down through here and you have the light shining on, and you'll be able to see it really good. Okay, now I got that all set. Now it's got those little stupid pad springs. So I'll put them on, and I'll hold the pads together, and I'll fish my caliper over the pads. See what I'm talking about, those springs? Then I'll squeeze it together with my hand, and then I'll get the caliper on there, and I'll fish the caliper on there and get my fingers out of the way. Okay, I got it on there, and when you're putting the caliper on, make sure you push these pin slides in, and also you want to match the pin side flat with the flat part on the caliper, and don't forget about the bottom in the same way. Otherwise you have a hard time getting your caliper bolts started. Okay, you got your bolts started. Snug them up equally. and then tighten them up. You want to torque them to like 18 foot-pounds. You might want to look that up in factory specs for this vehicle. I'm just giving you a ballpark idea. Okay, now those are good. Those are all tight. Now you can put your tire on. Before you put your tire on, you might want to clean up around the hub and put some anti-seize on it, because sometimes them prevent you from getting a good torque on it. And wheel lug nuts. So, okay, put your wheel on. Tighten your nuts, your lug nuts to 90 foot-pounds. And again, check your vehicle torque specs. And then when you lower down the ground, go inside and pump your brake pedal up. Make sure you got a good brake pedal. Go underneath the hood, check your fluid level. And then you can be able to put it in drive or reverse. But don't put it in drive and reverse before you pump up your brake pedal. Okay? Now the other side would be exactly the same way. So good luck.